How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. What is this, episode 4 we're on already? We're on a roll here. Already 4 episodes in. In this one, Dylan and I were gonna recap the two conference championship games that took place, and then we're gonna switch things up a bit. We're gonna save our Super Bowl preview till later in the week, and we're gonna talk about the NBA trade that took place like technically today it was past midnight, but with Luca and AD switching teams, all the other guys, that was a shocker. I don't think anyone expected that one.
Yeah,
But
no, that broke out really late last night. No, man. I mean, the entire media had an uproar about that one last night. So,
I know, and there's things starting to come out now about it, and I'm like, I'm still in disbelief. But yeah, so we'll recap the conference championship games, then we can talk about the big trade after. So we'll talk about the NFC championship game first, Washington Philly. So you just look at the scoreboard. Philly technically blew them out, but it's kind of a bit misleading because it was the Eagles were up multiple scores, like two, three scores most of the game, but the Commanders were cutting into it. It didn't feel like the game was completely over, kind of until what did they go up 4 scores late, and then you kind of knew the game was over from there. Um, Basically, I think the big story takeaway from this game is the fumbles absolutely killed the Commanders. The penalties, like the shoving Barkley out of bounds when they were about to kick a field goal, they get a touchdown out of it. Fumbles killed them. Saquon went berserk. Hurts actually had a good game passing for once. I think the Commanders like froze and they saw him attempt to pass beyond 5 yards, so that was probably why. Um, but yeah, interesting game.
yeah, I'll tell you, it really was an interesting game. From the start of the game, the Commanders drove right down and they attempted to go for a field goal instead of going for it on like a 4th and 2 when they went for it twice already on that drive on 4th down. So right away, I was like, me and my buddy, he's a diehard Commanders fan, and I was like, I don't know if I agree with that because I mean, you're right there now. Like you're at like the 10-yard line. I say why not go for it? You went for it twice before. Your offense was rolling, and I think the only way to beat Philly was to stay aggressive, which is what they did against the Lions. Now, on that drive, I completely disagreed with the field goal attempt on 4th and 2, 4th and 3, but okay, they got points out of it. It was 3-0. What happens the next drive? Eagles come down, give it to Saquon, he goes 70 yards, right? So now I'm looking at that play even more. I'm like, ooh, they probably should have went for it. But outside of that run, I would actually say the Commanders did a great job for what their statistics were throughout the season of stopping Saquon Barkley. And it wasn't stopping him, it was more of limiting him because his line was like 124 and a half or something insane during that game before the game started. And it actually ended up occurring that his under was the one that hit. So I think he was like under 124 and a half yards or something weird like that. Outside of that one run, I mean, he was pretty much shut down. And that's when the passing game started to open up a lot more for Jalen Hurts. Yeah, Saquon had 118 yards. The passing game really did start opening up for Jalen Hurts after that. Throughout the game, Saquon only had 40 whatever yards throughout, 40 maybe like 43 yards throughout the entire game after that. So a team that really shut down the run was trying to see how well Jalen Hurts was going to do in the air. Well, they found out Jalen Hurts had a decent game, 246 passing yards. I don't know if I mean, listen, that's what the offense of the Eagles is. It's opening up the passing game because of Saquon and everybody stacking the box, right? Now, this upcoming matchup, we'll see how that works out because I know Steve Spagnuolo is a very good defensive coordinator for the Chiefs and has been in these situations before. But that's the bread and butter of the Eagles offense. And, you saw Nick Sirianni hyping up his quarterback at the end of that game. And, for the Commanders, what a year. Like really, what a year. The most turnover in the league with their roster. And you're going to see this Commanders team take a huge step next year with their $100 million in cap space. This team is going to be scary for years to come. And Jaden Daniels just kickstarted that rebuild, and you're going to have a lot of guys who want to come and play for the Washington Commanders, which is something that has not been said over the last 10 plus years. So, yeah.
Yeah, Washington definitely is nothing to be ashamed about. Even if they would have lost this game 100-0, obviously it would have been an embarrassing loss from this game alone. But I mean, no one expected them to get this far. I think I had them at like 5 wins, 5-12 for my when I picked my regular season prediction before the season started. I mean, I don't even think the most optimistic of, I mean, even the players probably didn't expect to get this far. So they have nothing to be ashamed about. They're going to be a force to mess with for years, at least on paper. You just mentioned the 100 million cap space they have. I mean, they're in year one of a rebuild and they're a win short of making it to the Super Bowl. The fourth down that you mentioned, I knew that people were going to be all over that on social media. I don't think people are focusing on it a lot now because they got blown out. But yeah, like you said, they went for it in fourth down twice on their opening drive. I actually didn't mind the field goal attempt because it was a long drive. It was like I want to say like 7 minutes or something like that. And obviously you want every drive then in a touchdown, but especially if the drive is going that long. But the other side of it is you're only probably going to get so many fourth down conversions in a row. If they went for it on fourth, they didn't get it. Now you have a 7 minute drive, you don't put up any points. That's going to be absolutely deflating. So I didn't mind the field goal. I probably would have gone for it, but I didn't mind the field goal. But I'm like, okay, at least they get a lead. And then, yep, first play, they pitch it to Barkley, and he just breaks it off, touchdown. I'm like, yep, here we go. I'm like, but yeah, fumbles just killed the Commanders, like I said earlier. I mean, like the second half, they had momentum. They cut it from a 3-score deficit to a 2-score deficit. They're driving down the field. Eckler fumbles. So that I think that right there is kind of when I'm like, all right, yep, Philly. I'll be shocked if they lose this game, honestly. The first half, they cut it to a 2 point deficit. The Eagles get a fourth down conversion, miss holding call with AJ Brown. It's an 8 point game. After that, they're driving down the field again, or they weren't even driving down the field on the kickoff. It was a fumble. Philly got it. I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, they've been so good with turnover. I don't think they had a single turnover in either of their two postseason games, and they had what 4 in this one. So Philly's good at. I think they have the most fumbles in the league, forced fumbles in the league. So Philly's good at fumbles, but just turning the ball over at the wrong time for the Commanders.
Yep. And, we say this every week, right? It's capitalizing on turnovers and mistakes that, these teams make constantly. And that's the things about the playoffs is, it's unpredictable because, you know, it can be a 10-0 game and the team that's winning can be on, their side of the field and they lose the ball. It's 10-7 immediately like that, right? So, just the constant turnovers in the playoffs affect outcomes dramatically. And yeah, like you said, I actually want to give a little bit of praise to the Commanders because they could have given up and like I think they were down like 2 scores, and it
Yeah.
seemed like they were still playing with confidence and they were still there to like. It almost seemed like they could have won this game like at certain points like the game. It kind of felt like that, but they did a good job of just continuing the play. And like I said, like this is going to be a scary team, and I'm pretty excited to see it because they've been, my entire life pretty much. I'm 21 at the end of the day. They have been awful. Like this franchise, with the Dan Snyder day or the Snyder days or whatever his name is, it's been a joke of a franchise. And this team has a new identity. So it's really pretty cool to see. But it just stinks because it's in the division. So um yeah, but I gotta say, I gotta admit that the Eagles are a good team, right? But I don't believe in this team a lot as much as like everybody else does. Um, I know everybody around here, I'm from Jersey, so a lot of people around here are a lot of people are Eagles fans, and they're a little nervous about this game because they just know how the Chiefs are with this year with the refs and stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this Super Bowl matchup previews and all this stuff about that. But overall, this game was a really good learning curve for Jaden Daniels. I can't imagine how many words he had thrown at him that were from Philly fans,
Yeah.
into this game. But yeah, I tell you, it was a really cool game to watch, and it was probably the best game out of the two this wild card weekend. Just to see the constant scoring, just to see these big splash plays. You talked about the 7 minute drive. Well, then right after that, it was the first play, and then you see the defense go back out there again. So now you get more Jaden Daniels, you get more of the offense. It was just constant action this entire game.
Yeah, like you said, they could have folded because they're mostly, besides like Bobby Wagner, they're like a really young team, I think. And they were down 2 scores early on the road in Philly, obviously super hostile environment. They could have folded, and I think the Eagles even switched to 3-and-out, and they ran that fake punt. That was a ballsy move. If they don't get that, they're probably going down 21-3. So that was a super ballsy move. And so yeah, they ended up scoring after that. They cut
And
it to
I
the
love that. I love that.
yeah. Yeah, that's Dan Quinn. I mean, I wasn't too high on the hire with Dan Quinn, and most people were like, all right, it's not great, but it's not like the worst hire either. So he obviously overexceeded. I know their defense was like, obviously the offense with Jane Daniels is kind of like the highlight of their season, but their defense, like statistically, it's not great, but I think they actually played a pretty good defensive year under Dan Quinn this year.
Yeah, for sure. Dan Quinn, I mean, they really did have like a decent year. That's for sure. The defense played decent this year. They were just average in certain spots, but the group kind of played together as a team this year, and that translated them into wins. I mean, I think the highlight of this Commanders year is that Lions win. I mean, the amount of energy and what that proved to the entire league and how that set the culture in Washington just completely transformed, the NFL. The shift is there. I think you're going to see guys who are veterans, at the tail end of their career. I think they're going to try to play for this Washington team because it's a younger team, but it's also like an exciting team, but it's also has some of that like veteran leadership. It's going to be pretty cool to see how this Washington team comes and shapes first. So.
Yeah. Well, we won't. It'll be them in Philly every year, probably, because your Giants have an absolute brutal schedule next year, and then the Cowboys. I mean, no one knows what the hell they're doing. Just hiring or well, promoting Schottenheimer to be the head coach. That they're just a laughing stock at this point. Well, they'll win the Super Bowl next year. Now that I said that, but uh, yeah, Washington nowhere to go but up, really. Super bright future. Philly like you said, they're a really good team, but just, I mean, they put up what 55 is like the most in the conference championship ever. They had what 7 rushing touchdowns. I think it was the most ever, either tied, but I think it was the most ever in the conference championship round. But I don't know, just them against the Chiefs. Again, we'll save our preview later, but I'm just praying to the heavens that they somehow beat that team.
Yeah, with how Howie Roseman structured all these contracts, they better be in the Super Bowl. I know Saquon Barkley's contract this year is like $3 million when he got paid 13 or 12 and a half this year and 16 with incentives. But I mean, with the way that they structured this roster, they better win the Super Bowl. I mean, you have Jalen Hurts on a contract that is an average annual year of salary of like 52.5 million, and he's only getting paid like 20 million, maybe even less than that. You have AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts all on like cost efficient contracts. Um, I don't really understand, and I wasn't a believer because I didn't expect this, from the Eagles this year. But Howie Roseman, this is what he envisioned. He wanted this to happen. So, I mean, with how it's structured like this, have certain teams have certain goals. Like the Commanders probably didn't even expect to make it this far. They probably just expected to make the playoffs if they really wanted to, even that. But I don't know. This Eagles team, I mean, they better win the Super Bowl with how everything's structured because they pushed back a lot of money to their future.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're probably not gonna make out any big splash plays. This is probably their team for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So for them moving forward, it would probably have to be anything towards the draft. I don't see anything that has to do with big, contract signings with them because it seems like right now they're doing good without it. So they're just going
Yeah.
to continue this.
Yeah, that's one problem for them is a lot of their guys are old too. Like Slay, obviously, I think he said he expects this to be his last year. Um, their offensive line, a bunch of the guys up there are old. That Brandon Graham's obviously super old. So they're one of the older teams in the league. Obviously, Hurts is young. AJ Brown, even though he's been in the league, feels like forever now. He's still young. Obviously, Devontae Smith's young. Saquon's in his late 20s. That's still relatively young. So at least their key, most of their key pieces are relatively young. But they're another team that finds loopholes in the cap, I feel like. So I'm sure they'll mess around with it, figure out a loophole or two.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's just what they do. I mean, they really just push back money, push back money, push back money, and then the guys end up retiring, and then they pay those guys, and then they just push back the more salary cap that these guys are making. It's really crazy how he structures it. I follow it a lot on Spock Track. I see how they push all this money back and how these guys are, getting paid and how these players are, getting these contracts. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you might as well, if you envision this and then you expect to win the Super Bowl, I say why not take the risk, Howie
Yeah,
Roseman's done this in the past with his previous Super Bowl, and all those dollars amounts caught up to him until now. And he made some big splash plays in free agency with Barkley this year. And yeah, so I mean, we'll see. We'll see if it works out for them this year.
yeah. I mean, I hate the Eagles, but I'm pulling for them because there's no team I hate more than the Chiefs. Speaking of the Chiefs, Bills Chiefs. Oh God, this game kind of went. I think kind of how we were talking about it. We thought both offenses were going to have good games, but the Chiefs defense is probably going to make that extra stop or two that the Bills defense couldn't. Kind of exactly what happened. Kind of exactly how the game played out. Obviously, the Chiefs defense stopped the Bills on that 4th and 5, which of course Kincaid, any other team that's getting caught except the Chiefs, it gets dropped. I didn't really like the play call before that either. That screen to Amari Cooper. It felt like they were just trying to make it fourth and manageable instead of just taking two shots to try to get the first down. But yeah, back and forth. Uh, both offenses really couldn't be stopped, except the Chiefs defense made the extra stop or two. That's probably why they're, God help us all, back in the Super Bowl for the third straight year.
Yep. What else is new? I mean, another Chiefs Super Bowl, another go get at it, right? So, I mean, I'm gonna be frankly honest. I actually think that the Chiefs played better for sure. I mean, the outcome says it. The Bills, I mean, the Bills are good, right? The Bills are a good team, but like we said, that we thought the Ravens probably had a better chance, just match wise. But yeah, Chiefs another Super Bowl. I mean, it really was like a game that we called that was going to go to like the wire, right? And it's exactly what we expected, right? A good game that's going to be within a field goal, within a touchdown. We talked about it, I think, last week on our podcast. We said the same exact thing about that, right? Um, well, Mac Hollins and James Cook seemed to be like the receiving guys, and James Cook also had some carries on the ground, and so did Allen, right? Allen used his legs. It seemed like they shut him down relatively good. He only had 11 rushes for 40 yards, which isn't that much, but a lot of them were also QB sneaks too. So
Yeah.
take that into account. Which talking about that QB sneak,
Uh,
what's your, what do you think about that? Because I personally think he did get the first down, but I mean, yeah, I mean that's just how I saw it. I thought it was a first down for sure, and I think they call it the other way. And I mean that's just I'm on the side of you shouldn't even have put yourself in that situation to for the refs to make that call on Arrowhead. Like that's how I feel is you probably should have just got the first like made it easier for the refs to get the first down. I understand probably any other team in the league probably gets that call. It probably if they're not versing the Chiefs, but. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a first down, but it was close, but I think it was a first down.
yeah, to me, it was obviously a first down with forward progress. Obviously, when he was like, they tackled him on the ground, obviously it was short, but to me, forward progress, he clearly got the first. And they even at Jim Nance and Romo, who were commentating the game, they both like, oh yeah, looks like he got the rules analyst, Gene Steratore, come on. I think he got a third of the ball. And it's like, oh well, Chiefs ball. It just completely all right, the Chiefs probably would have won the game either way, honestly, even if they gave the Bills the first down. But if they gave the Bills first down, because they were playing like super conservative and like nervous at that point, the Bills offense would just short passes. It felt like just basic runs. The Bills, they get that first down. They're at like the Chiefs 40, up one in the fourth quarter. They're in like prime position to drain clock off, especially with how good they are running the ball. Maybe get a touchdown, go up eight, put the pressure on the Chiefs. The second they get stopped, the Chiefs offense goes straight down the field, gets the 2 point conversion, gets the lead. Now, one concern I had was, and why I think the Ravens had the better chance, like we were talking about, is coaching on the Bills. I thought was going to get exposed. The QB sneaks we're talking about. Josh Allen went to the left side every time. Nance and Romo talked about it, how the Chiefs just stacked the deck on the left side. Even one of their players came out yesterday. I forget who it was, but he said, we basically just sold out on the left side. If they would have ran anything else, we probably weren't prepared for it. That's all they had to do. Just sneak to the other side, just do something else to get short yards, but they just get like a yard or 2 inches. And Josh Allen is just like plowing his body, getting like absolutely like hit sticked to get inches. They're not changing it all. And then there's that. James Cook wasn't on the field for multiple crucial plays, like the fourth down. I don't think he was on the field for. Um, Obviously, you're not going to run it in that situation, but you can still have him out on the field at least. Was another the play action that the Chiefs ran where the running back just like runs to the flat. They ran that play like 3 times. It was successful like every time. Just coaching with the Bills, or like when Elam had to come in the game, they're just playing him like super off coverage. Like, I understand you don't want to like press him up against like Worthy or whoever. They're just playing super off coverage. They didn't really adjust too much. He just kept getting killed. Just the coaching, which just absolutely killed me from the Bills this game. And I do think, like you said, the Chiefs outplayed them. They deserved to win the game. I honestly was surprised the Bills were leading going into the fourth quarter. I felt like the Chiefs were outplaying them. But yeah, to your question, I certainly think he got the first down. And also, I'll say the Worthy catch to me was not a catch. I know you said initially you thought it was. To me, that wasn't the most egregious call because I think the Chiefs would end up scoring anyway. They were moving the ball well. They were going to get the first down anyway off of what a surprise, a penalty. The Chiefs getting the first down. So that wasn't too horrible for me. But the fourth down call, I would love to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. To me, he clearly got it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I do think that Xavier Worthy did catch that ball. And I don't know what they said after the game with like all like the, oh, did he catch it? Did he not? But going back to the before the season, okay? Before the season, the Bills traded
Yeah,
Chiefs, okay, in the draft for Xavier Worthy. Okay. Xavier Worthy put up 85 yards and a touchdown like on the Bills, right?
yeah,
So for the season, everybody was like, "Oh, why are the Bills doing this? Why are the Bills doing this?" I don't think it gets talked about enough. Is the Bills traded all the way back to take I mean, Keon Coleman's a good player, right? But you could have also just you didn't have to trade with the Chiefs. Like you could have just traded back even a little bit more, like in the end back end of the first round. You didn't need to trade all the way back to the Chiefs for them to move up, get a player, and also get like I didn't agree with that during the time that it happened either. And I mean, it proved. And Xavier Worthy came out with a chip on his shoulder too this entire year with that with the game that he had this day, right? It's just like the Chiefs found a way to get a weapon who was fast, and that secondary of the Bills was weak, and it did not have a chance to cover Xavier Worthy. It didn't have a chance to cover Travis Kelce a lot of the times. They really only Kelsey was minimized today in that game because they really put an emphasis on doubling him in the box. So it leaves everybody else open, right? So you had two guys on Kelsey, a 35-year-old Kelsey, and you had Xavier Worthy, who's fast as anything, running down the field wide open, right? So it's just the Travis Kelsey effect, and it's just I mean Patrick Mahomes knowing how to dissect the defense that really wasn't even that good coming into this year. But I mean, they found a way to win games and stuff going along the way. But I mean, you talk about coaching. It's every year with McDermott. It is
Yeah,
every year. I mean, this guy continues to just sell in every single position every year. They get to a certain point, and this is why I couldn't pick them last week because I said last week they have never gotten over the hump. I have to go with the safe pick, and it's the Chiefs, and it's exactly what happened literally last week. So I mean, I don't know. Where do the Bills go from here, right? Like it seems like they're just in a big hole that they can't get themselves out of every single year. And this year, it just seems like it's rock bottom. I mean, what do they do? Do they take the Howie Roseman approach and do they, go crazy in free agency? Do they look for a guy who's a solidified number one receiver? Do they, upgrade that secondary? Like there's so much that they should look at. And might not even just be on player personnel. It might even be some coaching, calls and stuff like that. But I understand that that's pretty much over now. But I think you have to start looking like for a replacement probably next year if you have the same result this year. Like you have to make it past because like there's teams that are coming up next year in the AFC and they're looking to do the same exact thing. They're trying to break that hump too. And it's going to be very close next year in the AFC and the AFC is very talented. So I don't know. Coaching wins everything, and every single year we find a way to, give credit to Andy Reid and I mean former Eagles head coach, but
yeah.
it's crazy. It really is because the Chiefs are here again, and we're still talking about how dominant the Chiefs have been for years.
Oh, God help us. Yeah, McDermott. He's in a weird spot because like they can't fire him because he makes at least like the divisional round every year. So it's like they can't fire him. They've won the division every year since what 2020. But his first year he took them to the playoffs. They lost to the Jags. That was the year the Jags friggin' Blake Bortles almost knocked us off that year. Jesus, Saxonville year. Um, he lost, but no one expected them to be good that year. They made the playoffs. They had like the longest drought ever. Um, so obviously he gets a pass that year. The year after they were like on paper one of the worst teams ever. He gets a pass for that year. Uh, 2019 though, that was when they blew the lead to the Texans. That was kind of red flag one. The year after that, they lose to the Chiefs. Then the year after that's the 13-second game. That is beyond a red flag. Even if they had won that game, that would have been all thanks to Josh Allen because he would have just bailed them. I mean, 13 seconds left. And it was two plays. It was a screen to Hill and then to Kelsey just up the seam. Just that was awful coaching. And then they got just swatted by the Bengals the following year. Then last year they lose to the Chiefs at home. This year they lose to the Chiefs. So it's like how many times is this guy going to come up short and they're going to just kind of let him slide by? But they can't fire him because they make it this far every year. It's like Mike Tomlin, but like he makes it farther every year, so they can't fire him.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. It's crazy because Josh Allen, of course, is having an MVP season, so you can't just let go of this coaching staff. I mean, he played out of his mind this year. So that's the thing is, like, where do you go? I mean, it looks like it has to be somewhere on the defense, but I mean, like, damn, you really like don't know. I mean, you're running in, like you said, we're running into a dynasty. I mean, these Chiefs are good, man, and I know it's coaching, it's staff, it's personnel, it's everything that they've been doing. But I mean, year after year, we just see the same thing. I mean, it's Bills Chiefs every year, and I don't know how you can even go against the safe bet with the Chiefs every year. I mean, I don't know. You can't fire anybody. Like you're right. And the head coaching position this year was not as strong as years prior, right? So you had guys, you know, maybe like a select few. I know we were talking about like Ben Johnson and other guys, but very select few that were out there available to the market of, for the next head coaching gig. You saw teams not really impressed with Mike McCarthy. You saw a lot of other teams that weren't really impressed with other coaching candidates. But, next year, I mean, that market's going to open up again, and you're going to see a lot of. I think next year head coaching, we're going to see a huge name, and I think we're going to see like another. I think we're probably going to see two or three huge names, and you're going to see a lot of guys and a lot of teams trying to revamp their own coaching staff next year. It's going to get pretty hectic the next couple of years with the coaching hires, but you know I don't know what's going to happen next for the Bills. I really don't. So, I
Yeah,
mean, better do your scouting in the draft, look for the future, look for anything that's going to give you a jump start, take risks, and that's about it. That's all I could say about the Bills. I mean, do what the Eagles are doing, which is crazy to say, but consistently you've been at this position so many times. I think you have to backload salaries a lot to try to get talent for the current team because that's the only way. Like you're a top contender in the AFC. You need to do stuff like that to just, give this fan base hope, something to look forward to instead of just losing to the Chiefs every year in the conference. I mean, championship. I mean, it's every year. It's upsetting. So, I mean, that's what you have to look forward to. Chiefs are, we're running. Everybody in this league is running into a dynasty, and it's been like that for a couple years now.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like you said, what can the Bills do? McDermott used to call the plays, then he gave it off to Bobby Babich. Obviously didn't work out. Obviously Diggs, they were a pass heavy team, didn't work out, still lost to the Chiefs. Now they're a run heavy team, not really like a superstar wide receiver. It didn't work out. It's like, where do you go? It's like you can beat like pretty much everyone except the Chiefs, it seems like. And it's like you're just gonna have to cross your fingers the Chiefs get knocked off by someone before you play them. And then if they get to the Super Bowl, that's their coaching's gonna get exposed too, probably. So they're in a really weird. Obviously, Josh Allen, that's not a concern at all. The offense, they're going to keep Joe Brady. So obviously, the offense, I don't think is a concern. But just the same year. Everything, just same thing happens every year. Lose to the Chiefs.
It really is. It's it's like, oh, we've seen this story before, and then everybody's like, oh, let's go Bills. This is gonna be this year. It's gonna be the year, that we're gonna beat the Chiefs. It's gonna be this year. And then it never happens. It never does. Which I know every year. The Bills could win in the regular season, and I still would be confident in the Chiefs and
Yeah,
during the season. Like you just really can't go wrong with Andy Reid and how he adjusts his his game plan and it's every year. Like I don't know, we could say the same thing over and over. It's just the same thing. It really
yeah.
is. What I mean, he's one of the most underrated coaches of all time, in my opinion, Andy Reid, because um I don't know how he got fired from the Eagles because I actually thought he was a really good coach on the Eagles. He got fired after that. Chip Kelly stepped in, ruined the franchise, and then Andy Reid went on and prospered along the way, and he's in Kansas City looking like one of the best coaches, really. Like he's probably a top 5, 10 coach of all time. He's really up there. I mean, when you have a superstar tight end, a superstar quarterback, and mediocre talent around the team on that offensive end, I mean, you have to give credit where credit's due. This guy really just took the offense to the next level, and it's pretty, it's insane. It's insane.
That's why I'm like far, far lower on Mahomes than most people are. And I'll just Mahomes is obviously elite. Obviously, he helped get the Chiefs to where they are now. But my thing with Andy Reid is Andy Reid, wherever he's been, all he's done is win. He was with the Eagles. Any quarterback he had, they're putting up career numbers. Obviously he wasn't winning Super Bowls left and right like he is now, but at least like he made the Super Bowl with the Eagles. Lost to my team. I just had to throw that out there. Um, that was when we repeated. He made like I forget exactly how many, but he made like multiple conference championship games in a row. Any quarterback, they're putting up good numbers. Andy Reid career numbers. When Alex Smith was with the Chiefs, they're making the playoffs every year. They were kind of like the Bills are now. Like they're making it to the divisional round every year and get knocked out like by whoever they play. But Mahomes obviously helped get the Chiefs over the hump to where they are now. But Andy Reid, I don't think gets nearly enough credit. Like when they lost Tyreek, they had to revamp their whole offense to kind of a slow, methodical, like 10 play drive, that type of offense, like every play. Obviously, that's Andy Reid changing how he calls plays, scheming things up. But it's just Mahomes just gets all the credit, not Andy Reid. It's just Mahomes. So Andy Reid is definitely a top. I mean, I see some people saying he belongs in the GOAT conversation. But he's kind of like him in Philly is kind of like what McDermott is now. Like the good regular season every year, get into the playoffs, but just come up short, can't win the big one. And so they fired Andy Reid. That was, controversial. They're gonna have to do the same thing. The Bills fire McDermott at a controversial hire. and just see where it goes if they fall short again. But yeah, Andy Reid,
And
top coach.
yeah, and talking about Andy Reid, I think people forget and discredit what he did for the Eagles team, right? So what was my I want your perspective on this. So what do you think? So when Michael Vick was on the Falcons, what was he known for? Like what was he known for? What do you think?
Well, he was Michael Vick on that God. That was when he was like God broken and Madden. Well,
Mhm.
mainly scrambling, not like a pure passer.
Right. And when he went to the Eagles, right? Andy Reid turned Michael Vick into a pocket passer. And Michael Vick was doing really good at doing that, but when he needed to escape the pocket, he did, and he had his eyes downfield. He turned Michael Vick into a pretty good quarterback. He was just getting older. He was getting a little more beaten up on the Eagles now because they didn't build the right team around him. But Andy Reid really took Michael Vick to the next level with, reading defenses, right? And he didn't really get that pure pocket passer until he went to Alex Smith in Kansas City, right? Then Alex Smith looked really good, which, was crazy because the Niners, I think, let go of him. I think it was, or did they let go of him or was he there before?
Um, I actually
Anyways,
don't remember.
yeah, it was weird with that. But the thing is, like, Andy Reid turned this guy into a pocket passer, and then, like, he doesn't get enough credit. Like, this guy is a quarterback whisperer, too. It's just, like he wasn't, I don't know, Philly expected more out of like the teams prior or whatever, but it probably wasn't Andy Reid's fault. It was probably everybody else's fault on that team because that team was a mess outside of Andy Reid. So, the Eagles had a punching bag and Andy Reid fired him. He went to Kansas City, prospered, and I mean, we've seen the result of that. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy how all this unfolded with Andy Reid leaving, going, making a quarterback better, taking, a risk on a quarterback at like 11, pick 11 when they had like a quarterback anyway who was pretty good in Alex Smith. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy how they really just made this team and built this team from the ground up with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep. I think we're gonna get cut off in a second
I
here.
was looking at
I was
the,
hoping it wouldn't cut you off in the
I
middle
was
of
looking at the- I had to
you
wrap it up.
talking.